Welcome to episode 119 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing John Hodge, who wrote Trainspotting and The Beach. He also just wrote a film called The Program, which chronicles the rise of Lance Armstrong. So we dig into that film and talk about his early career and how he broke into the business. So stay tuned for that. ScriptFest is proud to sponsor the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. ScriptFest features Carl Gottlieb, writer of Jaws and The Jerk, as well as Oscar winners, TV writers, and more than 120 companies waiting to hear your pitch. A nonprofit created by writers for writers, ScriptFest is devoted to providing career opportunities and education for screenwriters. Visit www.scriptfest.com for details. Enter coupon code SYS15 to save 15% on their bronze, silver, gold, and platinum packages if you order before April 20th. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Couple of quick notes. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found in my blog on the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 119. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide, how to write a professional logline and query letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. It really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Quick few words about what I'm working on. So once again, the main thing I'm working on now is the rewrite of my crime action thriller script, The Pinch. I put up the first act of the script in my writers group last Tuesday and got some good notes from that. So now I'm going back into the first act and trying to implement some of those notes. So the rewrite is taking a little bit longer than I would have liked. I really am going to push to get it done this week. I have started to get some crew on board. Some of the easier positions, or I wouldn't have the easier, but the lower level positions that are actually probably harder to find people because these are positions where there's no pay. I've started to get some friends and family involved with some of those positions, and that will be great to have because, as I said, some of the low level positions on this, a lot of the positions, frankly, on this production are not going to be paid positions, but it's especially difficult to fill those low level positions when there's no pay because the people really are not getting that much out of it. At least on some of the better positions, the credit has value, but a production assistant credit on a really low budget feature film doesn't really offer a lot to the person doing it. So it's good to get some friends and family, people you can really rely on and trust to get into those positions because they're important to keeping the production running smoothly. But as I said, when there's no pay on these lower level positions, it's very difficult to get good people. So I am starting to crew up. I'm going to finish this rewrite this week and then really ramp up pre-production. Again, the shoot date is looking like starting in the first or second week of July. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing screenwriter John Hodge. Here is the interview. Welcome, John, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Pleasure to be here. I'm not here. I'm in England.
Yeah. So to start out, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background, kind of how you got into the entertainment industry and work your way up to, writing screenplays.
Right. Okay. Well, I have been writing scripts for over 20 years now, and the first script I wrote was Fallen, which we ended up making, called Shallow Grave. That was back in, I think we shot it in 1993. God, more than 20 years, like 24, 25 years. Writing scripts was something I wanted to do from quite a young age. Even when I was at school, I used to sort of write stuff. And then I went through university, and I still wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And then I sort of, in my mid-20s, I thought, look, if I want to do this, I better get on with it. And then I kind of had the idea, a very simple idea, for a kind of very enclosed drama about jealousy and revenge, and that was what Charlotte Grace became. And then I worked with the same people, and Danny Boyle and Andrew McDonald, and we went on and made Trainspotting and Life Less Ordinary on the Beach together. And actually, we're hoping to make another Trainspotting film now, many years later. But in between, I've worked with lots of other people, worked with British independent filmmakers, worked with done a little bit of work in Hollywood, and now trying, like every other scriptwriter, I'm trying to do a bit of television as well.
Yeah. So maybe we can dig into that first script, Shallow Grave, just for a minute. I just was reading your bio on IMDb, and it just made a kind of a quick reference to meeting Andrew McDonald at the Edinburgh Film Festival, and it almost sounds like you were in medical school at the time. Maybe you can walk us through that process. Had you written anything up to that point? You had just always thought it would be neat, or had you tried to write a single script?
Yeah, I was a doctor once upon a time, and I was a junior doctor working in Edinburgh, and they had the idea for the script, and I started writing it, and it was very rough. But my sister was working as an assistant editor, and she met Andrew, who he was working as a location manager on a Scottish television show, and but he wanted to, ambitions that I was, he really wanted to be a producer. And the thing I always say to people, writers, or people who want to be writers, is the luckiest thing that happened to me was to meet someone who was at the same kind of stage as me, same age as me, though that doesn't matter. Similar sorts of interest in films. But really, what was great was he wasn't a producer with a bit of money and, a slate of several scripts in development, because there are lots of them. And the trouble is you get hooked to one of those producers, and you just end up getting notes and notes and notes, and then the thing never gets made, never even gets made. But Andrew, he didn't have any money, and I wasn't in a position to ask anyone for any money. I had a track record. And we just got on, and we stuck together, and he gave me kind of his sort of notes, sort of much as they were, and we just carried on developing it, me writing it, and him responding it, and then eventually we took it to Film 4, which was, the filming of a UK television company. And they were looking for that kind of, contemporary, low-budget thriller, I suppose, is what you might describe it. So it was good fortune, but, being with a sort of young, ambitious producer really helped,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. So when you first met him, had you already started to write the script? Like you started to have a first draft and you pitched it to?
I did. I was kind of, when we first met, I think we just met for a drink or something. I was into writing the first draft, and then, we met a few weeks later, we met up, and I gave him the first draft. Yeah.
I see. And then he helped you develop it to the point where you took it to the production company.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So let's dig into the program and kind of talk about that. Maybe to start out, you can give us a quick pitch or a log line for the film.
Wow. The program deals with the sort of rise and, I'd say, fairly tragic downfall of the cycling, sporting, athletic, cancer-surviving charity superstar, Lance Armstrong. And I see it really as not a film about cycling, definitely. Not even really so much a film just about Lance, but about the inevitability of the depressing inevitability of corruption and human affairs. And it was funny, when the film kind of came out, it was the same time as the Volkswagen scandal broke. And it seemed to me almost the same thing. Volkswagen is this wonderful car company whose cars we all love, but it was too good to be true. And it's just the same with Lance, It was a story. I remember when it happened in 1991. I thought it was fantastic. Lots of people did. It seems to be only cynics who are skeptical, and it turned out the cynics were right. So not very happy, but there it is.
So how did you get involved with this project?
I had a big British production company working title where wanted to make it. I'm not quite sure where it came from within working title. But anyway, they were looking for a writer, and they'd done some other work for them, and someone in the company said, "Oh yeah, we should get John, talk to John because he's really into cycling." I actually turned out to be a mistake. It must have been someone else, but because I had no particular interest in cycling beyond riding a bike to and from my office. You know what? Obviously, as it went on from, so we got talking about it and looked into it, it was you know, a modern phenomenon worth exploring on film. And I know that with the producers there and with Stephen Greers, the director, and we developed it. We went into production very quickly, actually. I think it was just about the fastest I've ever gone into production. We made our first meeting in sort of December 2012, I think, and then we were shooting in October or end of September 2013. So that's pretty quick. Post-production took about twice as long for one reason or another. You know, it's very nice. It's kind of exhilarating for once to be involved in something that moves quickly. Normally, you know,
so maybe you can. So a lot of the screenplays, a lot of your screenplay credits are adaptations. Maybe you can walk us through the process of how you adapt a novel into a screenplay, and we can use the program as kind of a specific example. What's sort of the first thing that you do?
I think you say yes, adaptations. I think probably most script writers have. Producers tend to like adaptations because you kind of know roughly what you have an idea as a producer, roughly what you're going to get before you commission it to what you do. And you know, who's going to, how many people producers are going to take a gamble on the commission spec script, you know, an original script. Also, I mean, I do have one or two original scripts in my drawer, but I'd rather sell them once I've finished them than kind of taking advance on them. So I think so adaptations and remakes and sequels seem to be the business that producers prefer. So I think that's mostly what gets written. For me, on the program, we started off with meeting with David Walsh, the journalist, who seems mainly credited as the most persistent thorn in Lance's side, and someone who was vilified and saved by Lance, but later, of course, turned out to be right. He's written a lot on the subject, and I read what he'd written. Obviously, quite a lot of other cyclists have given their version of events and read them to the point where I was really sick of reading about the same incident from several different points of view. And the other great information source was the sworn statements that they all gave to SADA, a lot of the cyclists, the affidavits, which you feel are, one would hope, are as close to the truth as it's possible to get. And so you just absorb yourself in it until you feel a bit, soak yourself in it until you feel a bit sick of it. But certain things, other incidents that leap out at you, you think, oh yeah, I want to use that. For example, the time when the bus stops by the side of the mountain pass and they all hook up for illegal blood transfusions. So there are moments like that you say you want to use. But then in terms of an overall structure, I mean, the final film did not turn out to have the same structure as the script, which is not uncommon, I suppose. But anyway, for some reason, I kind of quite like the idea, the structure, or using a little bit of the device that Soderbergh used in Elephant. Not Soderbergh, Gus Van Sant using Elephant. I like that idea of seeing an incident, and what I was talking about, all these people having different viewpoints of the incident. I didn't want to use it to the extent that he'd used it, because of the nature of the story not being in a way very satisfactory, because the main kind of good guy fails 2/3 of the way through the story, and David Walsh was sued and had to kind of drop out of the chase in a way, and it seemed like Lance got away with it. And then what happened at the end was, obviously Floyd Landis, who was a fairly late-on teammate in Lance's career. Floyd, felt he'd been dissed and rebelled eventually by deciding he couldn't bother keeping a secret anymore. So from a kind of, if you were making it up as fiction, that's not the way you do it. So in search for some other structure, I thought, well, maybe we can start to tell the story and then look back and start to tell it, from Walsh's point of view, and then look back a third time and start to tell it, bring Floyd in. But unfortunately, when we put the film together, and this is what happens, it didn't. Well, anyway, it didn't quite work, I suppose. So, for one reason or another, so we ended up telling a story in a more, I suppose, rather traditional linear fashion.
Yeah, yeah. So just, again, give us some of the nuts and bolts of sort of your process. You spend a lot of time just reading over the material and getting very familiar with that. Then do you start making an outline? Do you just go straight into the...
As I say, the first thing, so the outline is maybe just a list of incidents that you want. But really, as I say, roughly, when we're looking, I find, for that overall structural feel. And once you've got that, once you know, and that takes, for me, that takes a long time. I'm sorry, you sort of feel you're never going to get there, but once you've got that, once it clicks in your mind, the beginning and the end, I find that writing a thing only takes a few weeks. And that, hardly even that, really, if you've already kind of got the scenes, but you just don't quite know where they go. So I always find that with any script, it's thinking about it and appearing to produce very little. It takes the time, but once the characters have started to talk in your head, and once the end is apparent, or at least some version of the end, then you really it can be quite straightforward. But it's getting to that stage, and I don't have any set way. It can be different in each project, but generally I'd say yes, write down the main incident, and then just try and ask myself, in what way can this be linked together to be satisfying? Where am I going with the story? What do I want to feel at the end? What do I want to see now? If I was sitting in the audience and I've just watched this happen, where would I like to go next? What would be surprising for me? That's you have to sit there with the questions to ask, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe just break it down for us. So you say once you have a real detailed outline, you can actually knock out the script in about 3 weeks. How much time do you actually spend outlining? Like, is that like 6 months, 3 months?
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, as I say, this film went quite quickly. I suppose I spent a few months reading and but going on and off, and I was working on other things at the same time as well. So it's not difficult to say exactly how much time, but say kind of a couple of months, to sort of 2 or 3 months, maybe, thinking about it or trying out different things, but maybe not being satisfied, and gradually arriving at a structure, and then once the structure's in place, just a few weeks to. I mean, sometimes you write a scene. You just write a scene. You're not quite sure where the scene's going to go, but you know what it is, and it gives you a flavour, it gives you a tone that kind of inspires you to. It helps with narrative. I think there's an interplay between character and narrative that you develop hand in hand. So.
Yeah, yeah. So it's and maybe you've kind of answered this question by trying to structure it in kind of a unique way. But one of the things that occurred to me when I first heard about this movie was, how do you make something like this interesting? I mean, we've, at least here in the United States, we've heard about Lance Armstrong so much, and we kind of know how it all turns out. How do you make something like that interesting and fresh for an audience that has already sort of been through?
Yeah, that's right, in the documentaries. Okay, so what the documentary obviously can't do for you is, I don't know if it was made by Lance himself, which is certainly likely it could be critical if it was. It can't take you inside the moments that are actually drugs. It can't, it can't take you inside the motivation for taking drugs. Whereas if you have actors inhabiting the characters, being it, then you can do those things, and you can, I hope, identify to some extent with the characters, but in a way that a documentary doesn't ask you to do. Perhaps you can, I hope, sympathise with them. So I think there are advantages in that respect to fiction, as opposed to documentary. So how do you say? For me, it would be. I'm not an expert in distribution to American film goers, but it seems to me that it's a well-known story that we're interested in being inside the man. The other aspect of it, which we felt was potentially interesting, was the kind of not thriller is the wrong word, but slightly. Slight detective story aspect to it, and that's where I was talking about the principal character, the journalist detective, if you like, failing 2/3 of the way through. So that was whatever the structure I talked about earlier was an attempt to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah. Now, and that's sort of the flip side of that. You've got all this material that we kind of know about, and so that's kind of my next question is what kind of dramatic license did you feel like you had? You've got to be pretty true to the actual story, but at the same time, you've got to make it an interesting movie. So were there any moments that you felt you had to just move away from maybe what the reality was, or how do you see your sort of dramatic license with material like this?
On this film, I think there's very, very little dramatic license. As you can imagine, given the sort of litigious background to it, and the kind of a lot of people with feelings running strong, feelings running very high. We had, there was one of the producers I worked with, she spent a lot of time making sure that absolutely everything, is in some way verifiable. And the most difficult thing is the sort of supporting characters. In a way, once Lance had confessed to Oprah that he'd taken cheated, in a way that was fine, so we could then depict him on screen, cheating, because he's admitted that he did that, so that's fine. But if you look at the team he raced with, there's quite a lot of churn in the team. So people start off with him in 1999 or 1995 even, and they're not there by 2003. And in the film, you don't want to be introducing new faces to the audience all the time. It's annoying. But at the same time, if you've got someone who's identified as Cyclist A, you can't then make him do what Cyclist C did in 2004 just because, or Cyclist B, because it's interesting. You have to, once someone is identifiable as a character, a real person, you have to only award them actions and words that are truthful. So, it's very difficult. Also, there are people, in Lance's circle whom one would assume must have known what was going on, absolutely must have known. But there's no evidence to support that, so one could not depict them in the script or in the film as knowing what was going on. So, in that sense, the truth is quite, or the legal restrictions are quite constraining in this film, and you work within that, and I hope that in the end we reach something that was that feels like drama, but is arriving out of truth.
Yeah, yeah. So were you working with lawyers? I mean, that's something that has not occurred to me writing material like this. You're right. You don't. I
never got in a room with lawyers, but we had very good legal advice both in the UK and from the United States. People who went through the script and went through the annotated references about where the material had come from to ensure that they were happy with it before.
Yeah.
I mean, they would. I never think they. I mean, you think they would just err on the side of caution, so you can't do that. But actually, they were very supportive in saying, well, there's a precedent for this, so this is justified by that, so you're okay.
Yeah, yeah. So how can people see the program?
The affidavits are very helpful because they're sworn statements, so we felt like very solid ground on which to base
Yeah. So how can people see the program? Do you know the release schedule? Will it be hitting theaters, video on demand? Do you have any of those dates?
No, I don't. I know that it's on video on demand is it now, or is it soon? And then a month later, something that's in a few theaters. I'm not sure.
Okay, perfect.
But I think that's the.
Okay, perfect. And I always like to just wrap up the interview by asking the guest if they wouldn't mind sharing like a Twitter handle or Facebook page or blog, really anything you feel comfortable sharing, just if people want to kind of keep up with your career and what you're doing.
Very kind of you to invite me. I'm not on any social media.
Oh, okay.
I'm afraid. And I don't know what blog I'm at. No, I'm not kind of hermit caveman in that respect. Thank you very much for talking to me, and I look forward to listening to the rest of your podcast.
Yep. Perfect. I appreciate it, John. We'll talk to you later. I just want to mention two things I'm doing at Selling Your Screenplay to help screenwriters find producers who are looking for material. First, I've created a monthly newsletter that will be sent directly to producers. Every member of SYS Select can submit one log line to this newsletter. I went and emailed my large database of producers and asked them if they would like to receive this monthly newsletter of pitches. So far, I have well over 250 producers who have signed up to receive it. These producers are hungry for material and happy to read scripts from new writers. So if you want to participate in this monthly pitch newsletter, get your script into the hands of lots of producers, sign up at sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. And secondly, I've partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads sites so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, I've been getting probably 10 to 12 high-quality leads per week. These are producers and production companies who are actively looking to buy material or are actively looking to hire a screenwriter for a specific project. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. These leads can run the gamut from production companies looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas. There are shorts, features, there are producers looking for TV and web series pilots. It's a huge array of different types of projects. So while you probably won't be able to submit to every single lead that comes through, there definitely will be some leads that are applicable to you. Just depends on what you have and what they're looking for. But there's enough variety that I think pretty much everybody can find some leads every month that will work for them. These leads are exclusive to us and our partner. Of course, to sign up, go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. I recently set up a success stories page of people who have had success through the various SYS Select services. So if you want to check out what some other people are saying about SYS Select services, go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. In the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing screenwriter Max Landis about his new film called Mr. Right. Max is one of the hottest screenwriters right now, and the script for Mr. Right, which is what we are talking about, is the script that kind of kicked off this hot streak. So we dig into exactly how he went about writing that script. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. To wrap things up, I just want to touch on something from today's interview with John. Really listen to his comment about kind of how the initial seed that got his career going. It's all about networking and meeting people. And I really like the point that he made about networking and meeting people at your own level. This producer who he met at this film festival was kind of starting out, was early in his career as well. So it was a real good fit for John and him to meet. That producer probably didn't have access to, the top A-level writers. John, obviously starting out in his career, he didn't have access to the A-list producers. So there's always going to be this kind of happy middle ground where you can meet people maybe a little below your level, a little above your level. And I think that's an excellent way to look at this. So many writers, I get so many emails from writers asking about how can I get an agent and manager? And, essentially what they're asking, they're asking, how can I get a good agent and manager, an agent and manager who can sell my scripts? There's a lot of agents and managers you can probably get who probably are not that well connected, but those might be precisely the agents and managers that you need to get because, again, you want to find someone at your level. Essentially, when you are asking, hey, how can I get an agent and manager to go out and sell my script? That a good agent manager has been working in the industry 10, 20, maybe 30 years. So they've got a lot of experience. And again, why is that agent or manager going to look at your script? There's a million, good writers out there. So why are they going to take on you as a client? That's not necessarily a balanced fit. Most likely what you're going to do as a writer is you're going to try and find an agent manager, again, who's new, who's hungry, who's smart, who's hardworking, but probably is new and he doesn't have access to the top level agent. It's going to be difficult to get a top level agent because they're dealing with the top level writers. And hopefully if you get a good, aggressive, hungry, young agent, your career can move up as their career moves up. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I talk about this all the time. Working in the industry, if you listen to this podcast regularly and I ask people how do they break into the industry, by and large, the single biggest answer is about working, obviously networking, but working in the industry. Networking, I guess, comes with working in the industry. So that's the number one sort of way, the tried and true way to break into the business as a screenwriter. Get into the industry, work at a low level job, work your way up, network, meet people, understand how the business works, and then that will put you in a good position to find a home for your screenplay. I understand there's a lot of people that are not necessarily in a position to do that. And so I think, again, going back to what John said, I think that what John is suggesting is a very practical and I think realistic way to network without having to necessarily work in the industry. Working in the industry may not be something that you, just for whatever your life situation, it's not something that you can do. So then the question becomes, how do you do that? And again, John gave a very simple, straightforward example. Simply going to networking events like local film festivals. I mean, almost every single city in this country probably has a film festival. It may not be a huge film festival. It may not get, A-level films showing up at those film festivals, but everybody lives at least, 50 miles, 100 miles, probably from something. And when I say 50 or 100 miles, it's probably 50 or 100, that's a drivable distance. In a day, you can drive back and forth. May not be a great drive, but you can do it. So getting out to these types of events, just doing exactly what John did, going there. And, if it's not a huge film festival, that might be perfect, because those people that are going to be at that festival are people that have created a film already. So they may be a little ahead in their careers, but they're not too far ahead where they may not talk to you. I've found a lot of these smaller festivals, people are very, very approachable. It's not like if you go to Sundance, there's like literally paparazzi, there's news reporters. It's so sort of commercialized. You're not going to actually be able to hobnob or network with any of the stars or the directors at something like Sundance. I mean, you got to be invited to like the cool parties, and there's a whole, you got to have a press pass to like actually interview these people. So, but at these smaller film festivals, not so much. They're not going to be huge events with press, and the filmmakers will be very, very approachable. And exactly what John suggested, just going up and talking to some of the directors and producers of these films, these low budget films that are showing up at these small festivals, might be a great way to just network and introduce yourself. And I think too, even if you have a full-time job, I still think this is something that's available to you. You can certainly go on the weekends. Most festivals will run maybe a few days during the week, but also on the weekends, so you can go there. Most of these festivals also want volunteers. So if you have a few days that you can volunteer, again, if you work a full-time job, I'm sure you could volunteer for just the weekends. They'd probably be happy to have you, because that's probably their busiest time is the weekends. So, volunteering at a film festival really gets you like an all access pass. It gets you actually interacting with the filmmakers, because you might be like, ushering them in or helping them find their theater. So really gets you some good face time with the filmmakers, with the other people at the festival. You'll kind of be able to really navigate the landscape well. So consider that. Think about what John did. I mean, he wrote Trainspotting, The Beach. I mean, these are like big, critically acclaimed movies. And it all started with literally him just walking into a film festival and chatting up a producer. And it's as simple as that. Again, it's probably going to take some doing. I mean, you might have to do this for 3, 4, 5 years and network with dozens of producers before you find that producer that is as talented as the one that John ultimately found. So again, don't give up, don't get discouraged if it doesn't work out quickly, but I definitely think this is a viable way to network and meet some people. So what are some other things? What are some of the other ways that you could potentially sort of utilize this idea of networking and meeting people at your own level? I talk about this all the time on the podcast. Short films, I think, are an excellent way to do exactly that. And precisely for what I'm sort of saying is that these producers and directors of the short films today, I mean, those are the filmmakers of tomorrow. Those are the big stars of tomorrow. And if you can get out and meet those people now, your career can kind of go along with their career. And as you advance, they'll advance, and you can help each other advance together. So again, short films, even low budget feature films. I get a lot of people through my my podcast and blog. They email, oh, well, this producer only wants to pay me $1,000 or $2,000. They're going to shoot this feature film. And it's like, well, if they're shooting a feature film for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, the writer's only going to get $1,000. I mean, I've talked about this many times. You really can only expect to get between 2 and 3% of the production budget. So if the person is shooting it on a $100,000 budget, the most you can really expect is $3,000. If they're shooting it on $50,000, you'd be lucky if you get $1,000, $1,500. And again, this is not an insult. This doesn't discredit you as a writer. I think this is another great way to network, get some credits, meet writers, meet directors, meet producers, meet actors, and get involved with a production. So at any level, but shorts are especially good because you can produce a lot of short scripts over the span of a year. You could probably write 10 or 12 pretty good short scripts easily in a year, and then you hopefully can meet 10 or 12 different producers and directors. And again, it's sort of a numbers game. A lot of these producers and directors are simply going to give up and never go anywhere. But if you can do enough volume, then, and you have to be discerning. You want to talk to the producers and directors. You want to just talk to them and see if you think that they're smart and see if they're the kind of people that you do want to network with. And if they're not, then you say, this doesn't seem like a good fit for me, and you don't give them your script. So it's not, you're not locked into anything, and you want to be intelligent about what you're doing. So again, I talk about shorts a lot. I talk about low budget feature films. So what are some ways you can actually get once you've written these scripts, how can you do this? Again, I talk about this a lot, but I'm just trying to compose it into one simple little podcast here. Craigslist is a great avenue to find producers and directors looking for short scripts. Again, a lot of times they're not going to pay you anything. If they pay you anything, it might be $100. So you're not going to really make any money off these things. But if you go on Craigslist, anytime you're going to be able to, and you just look through the writing gig section of Los Angeles and New York City, you look through the writing gig section, you do a search for like screenplay or screenwriter, you will always find at least, 2, 3, 4 or more posts from writer or from directors or producers looking for short scripts. And sometimes, as I said, even some low budget feature scripts and stuff. So Craigslist is free. There's really no excuse. If you have a short film, a short script, and you're looking to find a producer or a director for it, there's really no excuse not to just consistently every day or every other day or twice a week or once a week, just go on Craigslist and try and find someone that might be interested in your script. The leads that I publish through SYS Select, there is oftentimes producers looking for shorts in that. Certainly there's also producers looking for features. So again, I would really recommend, my own service. Obviously, Inktip is a similar service. They have leads, and I often see producers looking for short scripts in the Inktip weekly newsletter. So there's a lot of ways that you can find these producers that are looking for short scripts. And as I said, you can easily write over the course of a year 10 or 12 pretty good short scripts. So you'll have a lot of material to market. And again, there's no guarantees in this business, but I can almost guarantee you that if you're a halfway decent writer and you're consistent with your marketing, you will get some of these shorts produced over the course of a couple of years. So what else? I mean, I was just trying to brainstorm some other ideas to sort of fit into this same model of networking with people who are at your own level. I think doing some simple outreach from home, if you can't attend film festivals, look up some of these film festivals. And again, I'm not talking about Sundance or South by Southwest. I'm not talking about the big con. I'm not talking about the big film festivals. Those big film festivals are going to have big time directors, producers, writers, actors. But the smaller festivals will have smaller films from first time filmmakers. If you just go to the websites, you don't even have to attend the film. If you just go to the websites, you'll find lists of these films. You can then probably cross-reference those films with people on IMDb Pro, and find the filmmakers on IMDb Pro. Very oftentimes there'll be email addresses and phone numbers, sometimes fax numbers, but certainly you could pick up the phone. Certainly you can send an email to these filmmakers. And again, these are going to be people that are just sort of starting in their career. They might be a little ahead of you since they have a produced credit, or maybe not. Maybe you've got some credits of your own, some short films or something, so your careers are similar. But those people are going to be very, very approachable. They're going to be looking for material. Those directors and producers, they've just finished a film because it's at a film festival. So there's a good chance that they're looking for their next project or next 2 projects or next 3 projects. So again, just think about sort of how you can meet people that are at your level. And I think this is another idea. Another idea, just again, I'm just brainstorming ideas here. There's probably a million other ways. You could also probably find those filmmakers on Twitter and Facebook. Again, going to the film festival website and certainly digging into IMDb Pro is a good way, but you could also probably just find them on Twitter. You can find certainly a lot of the film festival websites will have like the Twitter account or the Facebook account for the specific film. It's quite often nowadays they'll set up a website, a Facebook page, and a Twitter account for the specific film. Follow those those filmmakers on Twitter and Facebook and just see if you can't start a conversation. Again, you don't want to be weird. You don't want to be overbearing and just start saying, hey, will you read my script? Hey, will you read my script? Just follow these people and start to respond intelligently to posts that they make so that they get to know you and build a rapport that way. You know, a lot of the filmmakers that I have on this podcast are first time or even second or third time filmmakers. But a lot of these people that are coming on my podcast are not, you know, A-level screenwriters or directors or producers. And so these people probably are fairly approachable too. I had someone last week email me, said that they had actually contacted Steve Kuden, and we're going to go and meet him. He was gracious enough to agree to meet this screenwriter. So, and Steve Kuden is someone that I had on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, the people that you're hearing on my podcast, at least some of them are going to be pretty approachable, and some of them are not so far along in their careers that they're not willing to, you know, read scripts from unproduced writers. So again, think about that. There's a reason why at the very end of the interviews, I always ask, what's your Twitter account? What's your Facebook page? You know, I like to know how those people communicate. And sometimes they'll say, hey, I don't use Facebook. You don't use Twitter. And that's fine. Then we know not to bother following them on Twitter, because it's not going to, even if they have a Twitter account, it's probably not going to be that well used. So there's a reason why I'm asking this and asking these people for their Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts. It's so that hopefully you as the listener can hear that and go and follow them and then follow along with their careers. And again, start a conversation with them through Twitter. Twitter is a great way to start conversations because it's easy to ignore people. So, you know, yeah, you might get ignored some of the time, but if just every time the person posts something on Twitter, you respond in an intelligent way, you know, it's quite likely that they'll start to see those and notice those, and before you know it, you'll be tweeting back and forth. So again, this is just another way to potentially meet people. Again, going sort of with the theme of today, meeting people at your own level, or maybe a little below your level or a little higher than your level. Also, be real creative. You know, I just was like, as I'm preparing for this podcast, I just came up with these ideas. But I think that there's probably a million other ways to do this. And, you know, if I'm sitting here talking about them, then they're probably the obvious. Because as I said, I just was like sitting here 5 minutes before I started this podcast, and these are the ideas I came up with. So just think about this. How can you meet filmmakers that are roughly at your level? How can you meet producers and directors who, you know, are just starting out or maybe have just one credit under their belt? Those are the people that are going to be approachable. And those are the people who you can network with successfully and easily and slowly build your career. As they build their career, hopefully you'll be able to build your career. And John is, as I said, is a prime example of this. They started out doing a really low budget, you know, thriller film and slowly worked their way up. And as I said, Trainspotting and The Beach, I mean, these are like critically acclaimed high-level movies, you know, great movies. It's kind of the top of the key in terms of filmmaking and screenwriting. So it's a real good template to kind of look at. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.